Surreabstract Creativity Live. I am Masha Schwartz, and today we're going to be taking an interesting look at how to paint tic-tac-toe in the sensual way. I'd love to hear and see your takes on it, and I'd love to kind of see what you come up with. These sessions are intended to help your creativity grow, to engage you in more of a creative conversation. And I hope that each of us learns from one another. I usually do Surreabstract creativity by first brainstorming part of my subconscious mind assets and the different images that I see in my subconscious mind. I then add music to that creativity, which allows me to select a specific color palette influenced by the colors that I feel in the music. And so this piece is part of my Lady in Red series. So I have a very specific color palette for that, and I will share all of that in just a second. Let's get started. I hope you guys have your coffees ready or your drinks. If you are joining me in the painting process, have your materials ready. If you're not, just have your drink ready and join me for the creativity, and we'll have some fun together. Enjoy, guys. All right. So for this piece, and many of my other pieces, I use a number of different brushes. I want to walk through those first. All right, I use a circular brush, the number 1 brush. Use a circular number 2 brush. I use a circular, sometimes a circular number 6 brush. And then from the square flat brushes, I use a 1/4 inch brush, a 1/2 inch brush, and a 1 inch brush. The way that I use these usually, as you've seen in some of my other videos, is the larger brush is used for the majority of your canvas, and then the smaller brushes are used for kind of filling in the details, starting with the largest pieces and then going into the smaller pieces. I usually don't use a palette. For a palette, I use just a styrofoam plate. I like to have a piece of paper towel ready. And for today's piece, we are going to be using burnt umber. We're going to be using neon yellow. We're going to use a little bit of light, like skin tone color, pink. I'm using Naples yellow to complement some of like Caucasian color tones, whereas the burnt umber is going to be used for more brownish tones. And I'm going to use parchment. You can use unbleached titanium, and red, scarlet red. You could use primary red, anything that's like bright red. That's part of my palette for this series. I also sometimes like to complement it with alizarin crimson. I use quite a bit of white in a lot of my artwork. I do not use black, but I do prefer to use Payne's Gray. So if you guys want a rich supplement for black, I recommend using Payne's Gray. And we're gonna do some highlights in light blue. You could also use cerulean blue or another color blue, like ultramarine blue is a little darker, but I like this specific color. Okay, so we put these out onto my palette real quick here, and we'll get started. Yes. All right, this yellow. All of these. For those of you guys that don't know, I do live creativity, Surreabstract creativity, every Friday at 3 p.m. Today we had a little bit of a internet issue out here. It was really windy and crazy out here in Florida. So I had the internet cut out earlier, and I decided to wait until the chaos was down to go live because I didn't want this session to cut out on us. But usually I try to be here at 3 and start our lives at 3. So if you guys ever want to join me, it's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm doing these every Friday to help you guys improve and to increase your creativity and your imagination. All of us have imagination. Unfortunately, in schools now, they don't really promote it and don't really teach it. And I think it's so sad that our world is starting to lack creativity. I think we need to really encourage people to embrace their creativity more, because our job force is going to require creatives to lead it. We are going to have a lot of jobs taken over by robots and by machines and by AI. And honestly, it's one of the ways that you can stand out in the real world is by being creative, by exercising those creative genes that all of us have inside of us. So I strongly recommend that you guys take ownership of your creativity, embrace it every day, make sure that you explore every day something creative, some new ideas, because companies are going to need that in the future. They already need that now, right? We're all trying to stand out in some way. So that's your opportunity to stand out in today's marketplace, in today's world, by showing your creativity and by bringing that forward. All right, so we have, let me show closer the piece that we'll be doing. How much you guys can see it over there on Instagram, but here we are, and I'd love to see your takes on this. All right, so for the background, I actually thought to do this in a grayish tone. So let me see if we could do that here. Oh, before we get started, so I had a canvas, and let me bring that out, but I had a canvas that had a little bit of a tear on top. And if you guys experience this, and it's a stretched canvas and you already have it stretched and the tear is not in the center of your canvas, you can easily repair the tear by adding some gesso on it. So we're gonna do that first. We're gonna let the gesso dry, and then we're gonna paint over it once that piece dries. It's not a huge area, but I wanted to bring it up because some of us do have these challenges sometimes with our canvases, with our artwork, and gesso really helps it stick together and kind of become wholesome. It is the primer for all of the natural canvases that we use. And if you guys are stretching your own canvases, you want to use gesso to kind of prime it a few times before you start using it with paint. So give me just a second, I'll be right back. So I usually use a larger jar of this. I had a smaller one available here. It's a Liquitex gesso, just like from Basics. We're really going to use just a little bit to patch this up. I want my canvas to be smooth, so I'm really going to try not to create too many brush strokes of this. I like a really smooth canvas for these works. There's a little piece here as well. All right, cool. So I'm probably going to do a second pass of this, and my canvas will be ready too. Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay. So we are starting with the background. I'm starting with a lighter background on top here. And you guys remember, you always want to cover the sides and extend your colors all the way to the sides. So your sides are fully complete. This makes your piece a lot more professional looking. You can always paint the sides black, or you can extend the color from your canvas all the way to the edges, like to the end of the edges. That way, when you put it on the wall, it looks complete from the get-go. If you don't do that, your canvas kind of looks half done, and it actually requires a frame. So just remember to do that, guys, and all of your canvases are going to look very professional. Now, I sketched this in here, and I'm not worried about the middle lines here because I could always go in and fill them in once I'm done. But I really just want to put the paint on there, and I want it to, oops, wrong color. All right. I want it to kind of create a background for my canvas here, and as soon as that's done, we can start doing more details. So by the way, guys, if you are doing these paintings and you want to use spray paint as your background, I've seen a lot of artists do that. That's also pretty cool. I haven't gotten that far. I have used some spray paints in the past. I kind of like to sketch out my art first on the canvas before I even apply any colors to it. And I haven't really done a whole lot of spray painting for my art. I'm not necessarily a street artist, but I know that a lot of artists do use spray paint. I sometimes like to color my canvases in just like regular wall paint as a base, and then sketch my art on it, and then add colors and go through enhancing the backgrounds. But there's not really like a right or wrong way about it. It's just your preference, and I'm just here to tell you that any one of those methods works, right? So it's solely your preference for it. Oh, thank you, Brian. When you're doing the background, think about the colors that you're gonna do for your main images. What I mean by that is, if you're gonna put a dark color on the curve of an image, you don't wanna have another dark color that may make the piece that you are painting or you want to stand out kind of blend in, right? You want your, whether it's a body part or an elephant or an animal or whatever it is, right? You want it to stand out against the background. So always be mindful about the color that you're going to add to that element. And in my case, for example, I'm going to do a darker color here. So I'm using a moderately light shade around it so that it does pop. But if I was to use a lighter color, I would actually create a slightly darker background to make that contrast more apparent. Now I'm going to be doing these, I'm going to be doing these ones here in brown. And actually, no, I'm going to do these three in brown, and I'm going to do these in pink, in like more Caucasian tones. So for these, you know, the lighter tones, I'm kind of using my skin to test it, right, against the background. It might be even lighter than my skin. But for the browns, I really want that color to be kind of light because the elements are going to be darker. So that's just something I usually think ahead on because it's going to make a difference once you start painting the elements in, and you really don't want to go back and redo the background. So, okay. Let me go quickly through this. Nobody enjoys watching me paint the background, but it's part of something that we all do, right? So. Here we are. Cool. Depending on the type of paints that you guys use, you want to make sure that your paints are not too thin on your canvas. So if you're using basics and they're just regular basic, like if you're using basics, make sure that you do 2 passes for the background or for any lighter colors, so your paint doesn't start to crack after a while, and it won't be apparent right away, but it may start cracking like later on, depending on the temperature that the piece sits in, and create some really unpleasant looking cracks. So this usually happens when we apply paint, like a really thin coat of paint, and then hold the piece in an area where the temperature is too hot and then too cold, so it drastically changes, and then it creates some of those cracks in our paint as the water from our paint dries out and the other elements in the paint start to basically crack under pressure. All right. So. Can't see the top of this. To find a better way of doing this. So my short little self can see the top. It's interesting, I usually, paint not necessarily on a canvas. I like to have my canvas laying on the table, but that's hard to see for everyone, so I'm doing it on an easel. But when you're short, you have some challenges that come up in the process. All right. Now, if you guys are wondering, can you use gray for the background if you're just doing a whole background in gray? Yes, absolutely. I do sometimes use gray. However, having difference in the tones of the background actually enriches the painting a little bit more. It does create some challenges, as like if you damage the painting or something else, because now you have to come up with all of these different shades to repair it, or you have to pay somebody pretty significant money to repair it, right? But in general, yes, you can use the gray color, and that's perfectly fine, or you could use a solid color for the background. Just, you know, understand that it's not always the most appealing, and it creates a lot more interest to have kind of variations in the background. All right. Cool. So. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining me, guys. I really appreciate all of you and all of your support. All right, give me just a second here. We're gonna finish with this background, and we're gonna dive into some color. All of us want to see color. You know, guys, I've been painting for many, many years, and it's really, you know, kind of like business. It's a mindset that you get into where you know that you're in this zone of genius, like creative zone, and you're just like creating and you're making magic happen. And a lot of times I like to step back and go, ooh, this is kind of cool and this looks good, right? And I make it exactly as I envision it, exactly as I see it. And don't be afraid, like if you're painting something, if you're creating, don't be afraid to step back and take a look, because it's almost like looking at your work from a side. And it's interesting to see what you come up with. Sometimes you can surprise yourself. Sometimes you appreciate the work that you've created. It really just depends. But in general, like it's pretty cool to see what you come up with sometimes. And it's cool to reflect on that. And it's really interesting to find alternatives to the different kind of ideas that you create or you bring forth. And sometimes you like them and sometimes you don't. But one of the coolest things about art is you can always correct your course. You don't like the way something turned out, change it, right? Paint is paint. You could always paint over. You can always correct it. You can always fix it. So nothing is set in stone and nothing is like end of the world, right? So keep that in mind. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a digital designer or a traditional artist, or if you are just getting started and you don't know which one you are. What matters is that you've started. What matters is that you took action, and that in your mind you can see yourself as this amazing artist that brings value to the world, and that really kind of impacts the world in your own way. My vision for all the creative people out there is to kind of be empowered by your creative powers, to really take hold of your creativity and everything that you have to bring to the world, because that's what's going to kind of like lead the workforce of tomorrow. And honestly, I can't imagine anybody better than us who already live here and who have the opportunity to add our creativity to this world and to contribute to tomorrow's ideas and to tomorrow's innovations and to tomorrow's products and services and all kinds of different elements in our world. I mean, just look at how NFTs are taking off in the digital space. And yeah, I know a lot of people don't believe in them, and a lot of people are like, oh, this is just a trend. But it's not. It really isn't. NFTs are going to stay, and they're going to become a huge utility for the real estate market, for all kinds of industries, for everything that we do as creatives. And I say creatives, not just artists, because NFTs are not just for artists. NFTs are going to be prevalent for anyone that's interested in creating something of value. That could be a smart contract, that could be on the blockchain and secure. For artists, like NFTs provide you with a opportunity to make your certificate of authenticity as an NFT, which, you know, a lot of us have to create those just on paper, but now you can create it as a contract, and it automatically like becomes embedded on that blockchain, and there is no questioning who owns it and who created it and who currently holds it. So I think that in the NFT space, there's going to be a lot that we can learn and we can do. So take advantage of technologies that we have today and build the technologies of tomorrow. Like, I strongly recommend that all of you guys do that, right? And you don't have to be an artist to do that. You just need to be in tune with your creativity. You need to be interested, and you need to take action. And we can all contribute to tomorrow's innovations and to tomorrow's ideas and make amazing things in the world for everyone. There's a market for all kinds of things out there, and whatever you have to offer, there's a market for it. So bring it to the world, stay creative, and enrich the world with your visions and your ideas. All right. So it's getting close to Halloween, and I was really feeling Halloweenish, so I wore orange. Who else is feeling like Halloween today? Like, I'm ready for the holiday. I don't know where I'm going to be yet, but I'm ready for the holiday. Are you guys ready? Who is going to be what for Halloween? Let me know in the comments if you guys are doing anything fun for Halloween. All right. All right, I'm almost done with this. Again, for those of you who are just joining me, we are doing a sensual take on tic-tac-toe. Cool. Let me return. Very cool. Awesome. Okay. And that seems to have prepared itself fairly well. Cool. Okay. So I'm done with my background. I might come in and fill in another coat after I finish the main painting. But in general, I wanted to see what tones are going to come out so I can color against them with some contrasting colors. So I am going to be doing oh, that's too big. Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to be doing a lighter tone here. And I am using, so I'm using a half brush, and if you guys are doing the same thing with me, or if you're just watching and want to learn, when you use a square brush, if you brush it against your plate, the edge of the brush becomes kind of thin and full of color. So doing it at an angle, you can create that line for your shape. So that's what I'm doing here to create that really crisp line. And depending on how thin your brush is, or how new your brush is, I should say, it may allow you to do a really fine line, or it may allow you to do a thicker line. I'm kind of doing a thicker line because I need that for the full shape. But if you're trying to do a thinner line, you could use that as well. You just angle your brush at a higher angle, right? You do it more like that, and it will create that skinnier line for you. Okay. And this one. I am not a huge fan of mixing my colors directly on the canvas, but I do occasionally do that. So when you add certain colors and you want to blend them, that's a great way to kind of blend colors, is to mix them directly on your canvas. But if you guys are just adding colors and you're mixing colors, unless you're comfortable mixing on the canvas, I don't recommend it. So here I'm just filling in, and what I'm going to do is, once I paint this full part in, I'm going to paint all three of them in. I'm going to mix that color with gray, and I'm going to blend it in this area. I don't know if any of you guys are already doing NFTs or thinking about doing NFTs, but we have a really cool community. It's called NFT.tips on Clubhouse and on Discord. I will also have a community for the Surreabstract creatives on Discord, so remember to join me there. And we'll be discussing like how creativity makes a difference in your life, how can you increase your creativity, the different types of creativity, and all kinds of things that impact us as creatives. I'd love to hear what you guys would want to hear about creativity and kind of growing your own creativity. Where do you struggle with creativity? I know I never have like a shortage of ideas. And I've heard from so many people that are like, oh, I'm not creative. I can't come up with new things. And I'm wondering, you know, what that stems from for you and whether you feel that way as well. But if you guys have challenges with your creativity, let me know. I would love to help. I usually like to unlock my creativity by looking at different things that inspire me. And I work with a lot of folks that need to grow their creativity, and I help them out. So. I'm thinking of doing one of these in blue. Okay, and then for these, we're gonna do them in brown. I really wanted to do kind of like a darker skin tone. I typically do not paint African American skin tones. I'm not sure why. It just hasn't been something that I've done much in the past. But I'm starting to venture out a little bit more in that area. And I think with this piece in particular, I think it really adds some cool contrasts and adds a little bit more to have that. Plus it creates that like very different feel for the opposite player, right? I don't know, what do you guys think? Cool, I'm pretty happy with this. What I'm going to be adding to the burnt umber is my unbleached titanium. Same as here, I'm going to be kind of blending that in to create that lighter part of the skin tone. And again, the same thing, I would want to blend it in with the gray afterwards. Right. A little closer. So you guys can see it better. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So this gives me an opportunity to kind of add that blended shade in. And you guys can enrich your colors depending on the colors that you want to produce by just adding some reds, adding some yellows, adding some blues, right? So all of that can totally be done, and you guys can make those colors stand out. You just did what I did, which is brush some brown onto the background where you don't want it. You want to take your paper towel, dip it in a little bit of water in your cup, squeeze it off, and then very gently brush it against the background to clean off the unnecessary color. Make sure you don't scrub your canvas, because it's going to wash off the underneath background color, especially if it's not fully dry yet. So be very gentle and just kind of brush it off and then fill in any areas that you may have messed up in your actual piece. I am not a perfectionist, but I do like clean feel to my artwork. So when I paint, I prefer things to look much cleaner and much more precise. That's just my style. You guys are the same way. It's good to have a clean paper towel handy. Cool. Very cool, very cool. All right. In the future, guys, I am going to be giving you heads up on the pieces that I'm doing, and you guys will have an opportunity to repurchase your materials so you can paint live with me, and I'll also kind of share more about the piece that we'll be doing so you guys can create ahead of time and bring your ideas and we can paint together. I think it's such an amazing opportunity to create together and to make magic happen on canvases. And I hope that all of you guys would join me for more actual creativity, not just to watch me paint, but to create together and to make some pretty cool pieces together. So I do these every Friday at 3 p.m. and it usually lasts for about an hour, maybe a little bit over an hour. But you guys can dedicate that time to some creativity. It will enrich your life so, so much. Creativity adds just such a positive vibe to your life. And as you look at these pieces, as I look at my artwork, I mean, it makes me happy every single day. I wake up, if I wake up in a bad mood, I just go look at my artwork, right? I go and I make myself feel better by just looking at art that was created with love, with positivity, with an opportunity to gain some of that creativity that day, and it channels that energy to you. So when you buy my art, when you add your own creative art to your house, and when you kind of really tune into your creativity, it does amazing things for you every day, guys. Amazing things. So, all right, awesome. It's over a little bit. But, that's creating a glare. So we're doing one more over here, and then we're going to dive into some details. And so excited about these pieces. I'm finally doing a lot of the Lady in Red series pieces that I've been wanting to do for a while. I love the sensual and kind of sexual pieces that I used to do, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of them. I've been also experimenting a lot with the flow acrylics, and what I've been doing is experimenting with adding the flow acrylics to some of my Surreabstract art. So I think I found a pretty cool medium between the two, and I hope to hear your opinions, guys, because to me, like it's really important what you guys like, what resonates with you, because ultimately the art that we create, we're not the only ones who need to enjoy it, right? As an artist, you need to obviously enjoy your art, you need to be happy with your creation, but at the end of the day, your customers are the ones who are going to dictate what you want, what they want on their walls. And so it's very important to listen to your customers. It's very important to hear what people have to say about your art, and not just, yeah, your art looks wonderful or your art looks so pretty, but what is it that you really like about my art, right? What is it that motivates you to want to have my art in your house, or have my art displayed in your business, or have my art on the walls of your school? I've contributed so much to schools in the DC area with murals that I've done over the last 12 years. And they're really inspirational, educational murals. And they influence students every day to become better people, more educated, more knowledgeable, and more creative. And so with my art, I really aim to increase your creativity, your positive energy, and your well-being. And when you paint your art, you got to think about the same thing, right? What are you bringing to the world? How is this impacting people that buy your art? Why are they buying your art? Does it hold like a certain value? Because that's the value that you're going to highlight when you're selling your art too. People don't know there's so much art out there. Why would investors invest in one piece over another? And honestly, guys, it all boils down to kind of the why. What is your why for creating the art? And that may be their why for buying the art as well, right? That may be the value that your art brings to this world that really separates it from all the other art out there and all the other artists out there. I mean, I follow a lot of amazing artists. My art does not look like anybody else's art, and it does not have the same value, and it does not carry the same message, but it stands on its own and it stands out. So as you're creating or as you're developing your portfolios, you got to think about that as well. What is your style? What does your art say? What is it? What's the value of it to collectors? And why would somebody want to have your art? Okay. All right, so I want to highlight a part of this with actually light blue. I don't know if you guys remember, but I had like a portion of it here. This is light blue. Cool. And the same thing here. Once this dries. And the same thing on this one. Now, sometimes I wait for my paint to dry fully, and then I come in and I correct some of these and touch them up to be a little bit more vibrant. But in general, I do try to put whatever colors I want to use up on the canvas as I paint, and then come in and touch them up later. Oh, I wonder why it's not showing some of these colors as vibrantly to you guys here, so you could see a little bit. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. I'll have to take a picture of it. Maybe the digital stuff is not as vibrantly apparent. All right, so I'm going to be using red for some of those tassels, and then the duct tape is going to be in gray. I actually think I'm going to use red and yellow here, and then, you know, grayish duct tape, but I'm considering doing some of the duct tape in burgundy as well. I think it might be like red or burgundy. Might be also a nice accent. So let me, because I could always paint the gray over top. Ooh, that's actually nice. Yeah, maybe. What do you guys think? Burgundy? Not bad, not bad. That's pretty cool. And the edges here also. Cool. So one of the things I'm doing now is going back and adding some of those darker shades, right? Your duct tape is not going to be all the same color. And I'm going to enjoy some of that in here. Cool. Awesome. And this one. Neat. Right. Always think about the direction that your piece or material goes in, and don't try to paint against that direction because it's going to look weird. So if your tape goes in this direction, you want to paint in the direction so any strides are going to mimic the direction of your shape. And then, of course, here, I'm interested in kind of like that darker color here. And that one. Cool. I'm pretty happy with that. And now we're gonna do the other one. Sorry, Valencia, I'm painting tic-tac-toe in a sensual way. So for this part, I'm gonna use the number 2 brush, the circular number 2 brush, and I'm going to do the vibrant yellow and the red against some of it. So cool. Love to see your takes, guys, on this. Because to me, this is pretty cool. I'm loving it. I love how this turned out. And I think it's gonna look really neat. When we're done. So, awesome. And this one. When I add the background colors, I'm not super careful about it. But when I do fill in the details, I like to touch up a lot of imperfections. So you don't have to spend the time to kind of like be meticulous when you're adding background color, because a lot of times it's going to change. A lot of times you kind of like add shading to it, so it's never going to be exactly as you put it on there first time. So don't stress about it. But once you kind of start working with it, it starts to look much better. Okay, so now I'm gonna come in with some red. And now that the color on the inside is actually gonna start to pop, right? And then this portion, I do want to have kind of like a darker red that stands out more. And if you guys are doing three-dimensional things, you would never want to do them all in the same color, right? So this is your opportunity right here to kind of add some of that lighter pink, right? To make it lighter, depending on where your light source is. In my case, the light source is on top here. So I'm making the top part lighter. And it might reflect a little on the bottom, but for the most part, the bottom part is going to be the darker part here. So I'm even going to add some alizarin crimson to it to make it slightly darker and to make that sort of stand out, right? Remember, guys, when you outline a shape, it's going to look flat. So you don't want to outline every single one of them. You want to give some of them some volume, but you don't want them all to be just outlined in red, right? Think about the three-dimensionality of your piece. And think about the depth of it. Sometimes when you paint some colors, they're still wet on your canvas. So when you add darker shades, they don't necessarily come out the darker color because your lighter shades just blend in. So you really want to allow your paint to dry before you start adding some of those darker shades in, as I've done on top. And the same thing here. Cool. All right. And now I'm going to add some more darker shades here. And darker shades here. I really want that to stand out, but I want it to stand out on its own. And you guys can also do some of those darker shades on the bottom, not just the red, right? Around the yellow areas. Now, I do like the idea of this tassel being blue or white and with a little bit of like dark burgundy flare. So I think I'm going to do some pearls in here, and I think I'm going to do just the bottom in like burgundy shades. And then we'll be ready to add a little bit more solidity to the background and the tic-tac-toe lines. So I'd love to see your takes on this, guys. If you've done a tic-tac-toe, I'd love to see what it looks like. This is my take on the Sensual tic-tac-toe, and kind of my take on how to paint something like this. I do creativity daily, and I do all kinds of interesting sketches. One of the things that I didn't mention before, but sometimes you have to go through like 20, 30 sketches before you really like the idea of whatever it is you're going to sketch or paint. And that's part of the reason, so many artists take long to produce their artwork, because your sketches are going to take time, and that idea creation, it takes time. Your creativity is not something you can rush. It is something that just comes to you at the right time, and you have to wait for it, and you have to find the right time to engage in it. So it's really a process, and you need to kind of dive in and let it happen, and not worry about making a mistake, and not worry about creating something wrong in your sketches or on canvas. You can always correct it. You can always create something different. You can make it into something else, but you need to start painting in order to see that you don't like something, or you need to sketch it out in order to see that you don't like something, right? You don't always know, like until you put something on paper, you have a blank paper. So you don't always know that you're gonna like it or dislike it until it's there. And then you have an opportunity to correct it if it's not what you wanted. But if nothing is there, you're working with a blank sheet of paper, you really don't have a lot to stand on there or a lot to work with. So put your ideas on paper, get them started, and then work from there. So all right, so I'm working this as my tassel, and I wanted to do the bottom in burgundy. So I added white before I added burgundy because I want the burgundy to blend with my white. So it's not just like random strips of burgundy, but it actually blends in with your white. Even if some piece on your canvas is going to be white, you want to add it as a white color. And then, blend it in with whatever you're doing, because that's going to make a difference. No piece, even though your canvas is white, you should not leave it white. If you're using a white color, it's never going to look like super, super white once you add it on canvas. So always put the color down on canvas to cover the original gesso. And allow your canvas to breathe with the color that you add. Cool. I'm pretty happy with this, guys. I'm going to show this. I'm going to take a picture of this and bring it closer so you guys can see what turned out and see how we worked around it. I'm going to make some additional edits and make this the final piece. But let me see if I could bring it closer to show you guys so you can see what we have so far. This is kind of the piece we have. Let's see if we can bring it here. You guys can see what that looks like more up close. And we're going to add a little bit more background here so it's a lot more solid, and I'm going to add the lines for my tic-tac-toe. All right, almost done here. I do want to come in and do a little bit more background. Cool. Really happy with this. No, not everything has to be perfect, but I don't like white stuff showing through my canvas, so I like to come in and build on some of those colors. And since I decided to change these to be a little bit brighter, I am going back in and adding some of the darker grays around them. Okay. All right. Very good. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom there. For my bottom one. I kind of want this space here to be very distinct too. Right here, I want that color to be very solid. I don't want it to be just all over the place. And the same thing with this one. I want it to be very smooth. Okay, not what I want. But still something you could fix, right? All right, and we're almost done, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you jumping on and doing the creativity hour with me. Super cool to see so many people joining this. When I started this, I wasn't even sure if anybody would be interested or there would be any value out of this. But I figured we might as well. I paint just about every day and I create something daily. So I figured this could be something cool for everyone to be a part of and to be involved in. So thank you guys. Remember to subscribe to my channel. I just started a channel on TikTok, so if you guys haven't had a chance, I don't have a lot of followers there, so if you could support me there, I'd really appreciate it. But definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel and subscribe to my Instagram channels. And I'm on Clubhouse every day, just sharing values and adding to the community of NFT artists, of creatives, of business people. I mean, I jump into different rooms, I lead rooms, and I try to add value to you and others as much as I can. This is really just like a passion project for me to help others with their creativity and their art and structuring their art to be a business and be able to sell it successfully. So if you guys are in a boat where you need help with that, let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for people to help. I'm always looking to share more about what I do, how I structure things for my business, how I make money with it, and where I'm going from here with my art. So I do really appreciate all of you guys. This is the final piece that we ended up with when we add the lines here. Might need to put this down just to put the lines on there and show you guys the final piece. All right. So here. Cool. one of the cool things about painting certain things is you don't always have to have precision in it. Like when you're drawing the tic-tac-toe board, right? Think about drawing that on a piece of paper and like how your hand is going to be shaky and how that line doesn't need to be like super straight, right? So I'm not worried about not making it like perfect. Because in reality, like when I sketch this line on a piece of paper with a pencil, it's not going to be straight. So I'm doing the same thing here. And I'm just making it work, right? And so this is our final piece. This is my final tic-tac-toe board. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll probably sign my name here or over here, or maybe on top where there's a space. Thanks again, guys. This is our final piece. Let me bring it here, and let me bring it over here to you guys so you can see it. All right, cool. I hope you guys have an amazing Halloween. I will try to do a live on Halloween and do something else creative. But have an incredible holiday and enjoy the weekend. I will see you guys next time. I do this every Friday at 3 p.m. Take care, guys.